On lunar base, 300,000 kilometers from Earth, General Mike Carter stood in the underground command center carved deep into the moon's gray rock. The facility buzzed with activity as holographic displays filled the air around him, showing detailed scans of Kithra physiology, combat recordings from destroyed colonies, and biological data that made his military mind race with possibilities. The main display showed a three-dimensional model of a Kithra nervous system, its neural pathways glowing like a constellation of stars. Beside it, combat footage played in slow motion, a Kithra dock worker dodging falling debris during a Vorthak raid, moving with liquid grace that seemed to defy physics. "They've been using them all wrong," Mike muttered to Colonel Beth Wilson, his intelligence chief. The veteran officer had served in 3 interplanetary conflicts and possessed an eye for tactical potential that had saved countless human lives. Beth nodded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface to highlight specific data points. "Look at these reaction times. So, a human pilot needs 0.3 seconds to process a visual threat and respond. The average Kithra does it in 0.08 seconds. And their ability to process multiple data streams simultaneously is off the charts. Watch this." The display shifted to show a Kithra maintenance worker simultaneously monitoring 17 different system alerts while repairing a damaged reactor core. His 4 arms moved independently, each performing complex tasks while his main attention remained focused on the dangerous repair work. "Their brains work like organic quantum computers," Beth continued, pulling up more research data. "While we process information linearly, they handle multiple thought processes in parallel. The galaxy sees them as weak because they avoid conflict, but look at what happens when they have to react under pressure." The screen showed security footage from a recent Vorthak attack on a Kithra research station. As plasma bolts tore through the facility, a group of Kithra scientists had somehow managed to evacuate 3,000 civilians in under 8 minutes, moving through collapsing corridors with perfect coordination, never losing a single life despite the chaos around them. Mike studied the footage intently. They are not weak. They are wired differently. Every species in the galaxy has been trying to make them fight like Bruthans or Draconians, but that's like asking a surgeon to fight like a boxer. 3 days later, the first convoy of unmarked transport ships approached lunar base through the asteroid field that concealed the facility from prying alien sensors. The ships were sleek Kithra designs, their hulls shimmering with the same blue-silver coloring as their creator's skin. As they docked in the hidden bay, magnetic clamps secured them to the station with soft metallic clicks. The airlock hissed open, and 200 young Kithra volunteers stepped onto the polished metal deck of the training facility. Their leader, a female named Kiranel, stood barely 5 feet tall but carried herself with quiet determination. Her pale blue skin bore the ritual scars of colonial survivor, and her dark eyes held the weight of watching her home burn under Vorthak plasma fire. Behind her, the other volunteers looked around nervously at their surroundings. The training facility stretched out like an underground city, with practice arenas, simulation chambers, and equipment bays carved into the lunar rock. Holographic targets materialized and vanished in the distance as human soldiers ran combat drills. The air hummed with the sound of energy weapons on training settings and the rhythmic thrum of artificial gravity generators. Most of the Kithra had never seen human military technology up close. Their own people had abandoned weapon development centuries ago, choosing instead to focus on art, science, and philosophy. Now they stood in a facility that could probably outfit an entire battle fleet, surrounded by humans who had somehow seen potential where the rest of the galaxy saw only weakness. General Mike Carter approached the group, his presence commanding but not threatening. Unlike the towering aliens who had dismissed their species for millennia, this human looked at them with genuine interest rather than contempt. "I know what everyone says about your people." Mike addressed them directly, his voice carrying through the facility's acoustics. "They call you weak, pacifist, useless in a fight. They're wrong. We're going to prove it together." A ripple of uncertainty passed through the Kithra volunteers. Some exchanged glances with their antennae twitching nervously, while others stood straighter, their forearms clenched into fists. Dr. Rachel Hayes, Earth's leading xenobiologist, emerged from her laboratory carrying a datapad filled with research that had kept her awake for 72 hours straight. Her team had been working around the clock to develop specialized training equipment that could work with Kithra biology rather than against it. Their nervous systems are actually more advanced than ours, she explained to the assembled training staff, human sergeants, and officers who had volunteered for this unprecedented cross-species military program. We just need to teach them how to use what they have. Look at this. She activated a holographic display showing comparative brain scans. A human brain processes about 126 bits of information per second. The Kithra average is over 400 bits. They are not slower thinkers. They are trying to process everything at once. In combat, that could be the difference between life and death. Kiranel stepped forward, her voice quiet but clear. Doctor, with respect, our people have tried to become warriors before. We always fail. Our elders say we lack the killer instinct that evolution gave other species. Mike Carter smiled, the expression transforming his weathered face. Evolution didn't make you killers, Kiranel. It made you something better. It made you survivors. And survivors who can think faster and see more than anyone else? That's not weakness. That's a weapon the galaxy has never seen before. The Kithra looked at each other uncertainly. They had been called weak their entire lives, relegated to menial tasks while stronger species dominated the galaxy. Could these humans really see something different? Could they truly transform from the galaxy's servants into something their enemies would fear? On Lunar Base, 300,000 kilometers from Earth, General Mike Carter stood in the underground command center carved deep into the moon's gray bedrock. The facility hummed with activity as holographic displays filled the air around him, casting blue and green light across his weathered face. Advanced alien technology, captured and reverse-engineered from various conflicts, mixed with cutting-edge human innovations to create something unprecedented in galactic military history. The main display showed a three-dimensional model of Kithra physiology that rotated slowly in the air. Their nervous system glowed like a constellation of interconnected stars, with neural pathways that branched and merged in patterns that made human brains look primitive by comparison. Beside it, combat footage played in slow motion, showing a Kithra dock worker dodging falling debris during a recent Vorthak raid with movements so fluid they seemed choreographed. They've been using them all wrong, Mike muttered to Colonel Bear Foster, his intelligence chief. The veteran officer had spent 15 years analyzing alien combat patterns and possessed an eye for tactical potential that had revolutionized human military doctrine. Beth nodded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface to highlight specific data points. Neural response charts cascaded through the air like waterfalls of information. Look at these reaction times. Sir? Our best fighter pilots need 0.3 seconds to process a visual threat and respond. The average Kithra civilian does it in 0.08 seconds, and their ability to process multiple data streams simultaneously is completely off the charts. The display shifted to surveillance footage from a Kithra orbital station. A maintenance worker moved through the complex facility like a dancer, simultaneously monitoring 17 different system alerts while repairing a damaged fusion reactor. His forearms moved independently, each performing intricate tasks while his primary attention remained focused on preventing a reactor breach that could have killed thousands. Their brains work like organic quantum computers, Beth continued, pulling up brain scan comparisons. While we process information in sequence, they handle multiple thought processes in parallel. The galaxy sees them as weak because they avoid conflict, but watch what happens when survival instincts kick in. Security footage from a recent Vorthak assault filled the display. As plasma bolts tore through a research station's hull, a group of Kithra scientists had somehow evacuated 3,000 civilians in under 10 minutes. They moved through collapsing corridors with perfect coordination, carrying injured colleagues while simultaneously calculating structural stress patterns and optimal escape routes. Not a single life was lost despite the chaos raining down around them. Mike studied the footage with growing excitement. They are not weak warriors. They are not warriors at all. They are something completely different. Every military force in the galaxy has been trying to make them fight like Bruthans or Draconians, but that's like asking a surgeon to box like a heavyweight champion. The general pulled up tactical simulations on another display. What if we stop trying to make them into something they are not? What if we figure out what they actually are and weaponize it instead? 3 days later, a convoy of unmarked transport vessels approached Lunar Base through the asteroid field that concealed the facility from alien surveillance networks. The ships were elegant Kithra designs, their hulls shimmering with biometallic compounds that shifted color based on surrounding electromagnetic fields. Unlike the angular, aggressive shapes preferred by most galactic militaries. These vessels moved like living creatures through space. As the transports docked in the hidden bay, massive magnetic clamps secured them with resonant chimes that echoed through the facility. The airlocks hissed open with pressurized steam, and 200 young Kithra volunteers stepped onto the polished titanium deck of Lunar Base's training complex. Their leader, Kiranel, stood barely 5 feet tall but carried herself with quiet determination that immediately caught human attention. Her pale blue skin bore the ritual scars of colonial survivor, and her dark eyes held memories of watching her birth colony burn under Vorthak plasma bombardment. Behind her, the other volunteers looked around nervously at their new surroundings. The training facility stretched out like an underground metropolis carved into lunar rock. Practice arenas the size of football fields contained holographic environments that could simulate any battlefield in the galaxy. Weapon ranges extended deep into the moon's core, their energy-dampening fields preventing stray shots from reaching the surface. Advanced robots moved through the corridors, carrying supplies and maintaining equipment with mechanical precision. Most of the Kithra had never seen human military technology in operation. Their own civilization had abandoned weapons development 3,000 years ago, choosing instead to focus on art, science, and philosophical advancement. Now they stood in a facility that could outfit entire battle fleets, surrounded by humans who somehow saw potential where the rest of the galaxy saw only weakness. General Mike Carter approached the group, his presence commanding but non-threatening. Unlike the towering alien species who had dismissed the Kithra for millennia, this human looked at them with genuine curiosity rather than contempt or pity. "I know what everyone says about your people." Mike addressed them directly, his voice carrying through the facility's acoustic systems. "They call you weak, pacifist, useless in combat. They're completely wrong. We're going to prove it together." Dr. Rachel Morrison emerged from her xenobiology laboratory, carrying research data that had kept her team working for 72 straight hours. Her breakthrough discoveries about Kithra neural architecture had convinced Earth Command to approve this unprecedented experiment. "Their nervous systems are actually more advanced than ours," she explained to the assembled human training staff. "We just need to teach them how to weaponize what they already have." A human brain processes about 126 bits of information per second. The Kithra average is over 400 bits. They are not slow thinkers trying to keep up. They are quantum processors trying to function in a linear world. The Kithra volunteers exchanged uncertain glances, their antennae twitching with nervous energy. They had been called weak their entire lives, relegated to cleaning stations and tending gardens while stronger species dominated galactic civilization. Kiranel stepped forward, her voice quiet but clear. "General, our people have tried to become warriors before. We always fail. Perhaps we truly lack what evolution gave other species." Mike Carter smiled, the expression transforming his weathered features. "Evolution didn't make you killers, Kiranel. It made you something infinitely more dangerous. It made you thinkers who can move faster than thought itself." 6 months of intensive training had transformed the Kithra volunteers beyond recognition. The nervous, uncertain beings who had arrived at Lunar Base were gone, replaced by something the galaxy had never witnessed before. In the main training arena, holographic enemies materialized and vanished as simulated plasma bolts filled the air with deadly light. Sergeant Jack Stevens crouched behind cover, watching in amazement as his trainees executed a complex tactical maneuver with precision that would make veteran human special forces jealous. The Kithra moved like liquid shadow through the simulated battlefield, their forearms working independently while their enhanced sensors tracked multiple threats simultaneously. Kiranel. Jack called to their squad leader through his communication headset. "Report status." "Target neutralized in 3.7 seconds. Sergeant," came the calm reply. "Zero collateral damage detected. All squad members accounted for and repositioning complete for next objective." Jack shook his head in disbelief. The holographic enemy had been a simulated Vorthak heavy assault trooper, the kind of opponent that typically required an entire human fire team to neutralize safely. Kiranel had taken it down alone while simultaneously coordinating her team's movement through a collapsing building simulation. What the galaxy had dismissed as emotional weakness, the humans had molded into something far more dangerous: tactical empathy. The Kithra could sense enemy movements through subtle environmental changes that other species completely missed. Air pressure shifts from moving bodies, micro-vibrations through solid surfaces, even electromagnetic field fluctuations from alien technology. Their enhanced nervous systems process it all into a combat awareness that bordered on supernatural. Their supposed cowardice had become calculated caution that saved lives and resources. While Bruthan warriors charged headlong into battle, accepting massive casualties as inevitable, the Kithra eliminated threats with surgical precision that left no room for error or waste. Dr. Robert Kellerman had spent sleepless nights in his engineering lab, developing specialized armor that amplified their natural abilities rather than trying to compensate for perceived weaknesses. The lightweight suits looked nothing like the bulky power armor used by human marines or the thick metal plates favored by alien warriors. Instead, the Kithra combat suits resembled living organisms more than military equipment. Biometallic fibers wove through the material like nervous systems, connecting advanced sensors directly to the wearer's enhanced neural pathways. Microprocessors throughout the suit analyzed environmental data and fed it directly into their consciousness at the speed of thought. Watch this demonstration, Robert explained to a group of visiting Earth officials in the observation deck overlooking the training arena. Admiral Helen Brooks and General David Chen had come to evaluate the program's progress, their skepticism evident despite the promising reports. In the arena below, a Kithra trainee named Velkar stood motionless in the center of a complex maze filled with hidden threats. Robert activated the simulation, and suddenly the maze erupted with movement. Automated weapons emerged from walls, holographic enemies materialized from multiple directions, and environmental hazards activated throughout the structure. Velkos moved like water flowing downhill, his enhanced suit amplifying every sensation into actionable intelligence. He sensed the weapons charging before they fired, felt the vibrations of approaching enemies through the floor, and detected the heat signatures of activation systems through the walls. In 43 seconds, he had neutralized every threat without sustaining a single hit. "Impossible," Admiral Brooks whispered, leaning forward against the observation window. "No human could have survived that scenario." "That's the point," Robert replied with satisfaction. "They are not becoming human warriors. They are becoming something entirely new, Kithra warriors. We stopped trying to force them into our combat doctrines and instead built new ones around their natural abilities. The training had been brutal, but not in the way most military programs operated. Instead of physical punishment and grueling endurance tests, the humans had challenged the Kithra mentally and emotionally. They learned to channel their empathetic nature into tactical awareness, their fear responses into life-saving caution, and their pack-bonding instincts into unbreakable unit cohesion. Lieutenant Colonel Nancy Walsh had developed psychological conditioning programs that turned their greatest perceived weaknesses into devastating strengths. Their reluctance to cause unnecessary harm became precision that could disable rather than destroy. Their emotional sensitivity became the ability to predict enemy behavior through micro-expressions and body language that other species ignored. The transformation was complete when the first graduated unit chose their own designation. Standing in formation before their human instructors, Kiranel stepped forward to address the assembled crowd of Earth officials, scientists, and military personnel. "We were once called the weakest species in the galaxy," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the arena's sound systems. "Today, we choose a new name for ourselves. We are the Silent Storm, invisible until we strike, devastating when we do, and gone before our enemies understand what happened." The 200 Kithra stood in perfect formation, their biometallic armor shifting colors in response to their synchronized neural patterns. They no longer trembled with uncertainty or fear. Instead, they radiated quiet confidence that made even hardened human veterans take notice. General Chen turned to Admiral Brooks with undisguised amazement. "We didn't just train an alien species to fight. We created something the galaxy has never seen before." In the months ahead, the Silent Storm would prove that assessment correct in ways none of them could imagine. The Vorthek Empire was about to discover that their greatest mistake wasn't underestimating humanity. It was underestimating what humans could help others become. The galaxy's definition of weakness was about to change forever. Admiral Cragmore of the Vorthak Imperial Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship dreadnought, the Death's Edge Asterisk, as it approached the Kithra homeworld of Thylus. The massive vessel stretched over 2 kilometers in length, its black hull bristling with plasma cannons capable of reducing entire cities to molten glass. Behind him, 4 to 7 more warships moved in perfect formation, their weapon ports glowing with barely contained energy. The Vorthek were apex predators of space. Their insectoid forms evolved for conquest and domination. Cragmore's 6 arms manipulated holographic displays with practiced efficiency, his compound eyes taking in tactical data from across the fleet. His species had crushed hundreds of worlds over the past millennium, and the Kithera colonies had been laughably easy targets. Skim results coming in Admiral, reported his tactical officer, a younger Vorthek whose carapace still bore the bright colors of recent molting. The planet shows minimal defensive installations. No orbital platforms, no shield generators, no weapon satellites, just like the other colonies. Cragmore clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. 12 Kithera worlds had fallen to his fleet without meaningful resistance. The pacifist weaklings had barely managed to launch escape pods before his plasma bombardments turned their cities into craters. This final assault would eliminate the species entirely and claim their resource-rich homeworld for the Empire. Begin bombardment of their defensive positions, Cragmore ordered confidently, his voice carrying through the ship's communication systems to the entire fleet. Standard Pattern 7. Leave the industrial centers intact for harvesting. The first indication something was wrong came when his targeting systems began experiencing mysterious failures. Weapon locks dissolved without explanation, sensor arrays reported phantom readings, and navigation computers started showing impossible data streams. "So," his tactical officer's voice cracked with confusion, "our targeting matrix is malfunctioning. Sensors are detecting some kind of interference, but we can't locate the source." Before Cragmore could respond, his communication arrays started experiencing catastrophic system failures. Ship-to-ship channels filled with static, long-range transmitters went dark, and even internal communications became unreliable. The massive fleet that had operated as a unified weapon suddenly found itself blind and deaf. "Impossible!" Cragmore snarled, his claws scraping against a metal console. "The Kithera have no electronic warfare capabilities. They barely understand basic technology beyond cleaning and farming." His sensor officer, a veteran of 50 campaigns, stared at his displays with growing panic. "Sir, we're detecting impossible movement patterns on the surface. The energy signatures don't match any known Kithera technology. They're fighting back." What followed defied everything the Vorthek knew about warfare. The planet's surface erupted with activity as sleek craft launched from hidden facilities carved deep into mountain ranges. These weren't the clumsy civilian vessels of Vorthek had destroyed at other colonies. They moved like predators, using stealth technology that made them nearly invisible against the electromagnetic background of space. Kithera strike teams materialized seemingly from nowhere, their biometallic armor allowing them to blend perfectly with asteroid fields and debris clouds. They struck with surgical precision at critical ship systems, targeting power conduits, communication arrays, and weapon control centers with accuracy that bordered on supernatural. The Death's Edge asterisk shuddered as something attached to its hull. Cragmore's damage control teams reported intrusions in 17 different sections simultaneously, but security cameras showed nothing but empty corridors. Then his primary weapons went offline one by one, each system failing in perfect sequence as invisible saboteurs disabled them from within. "Deck 14 reports boarders, but we can't see them," screamed the security chief over the deteriorating communication system. "They are moving through the ship like ghosts. Our sensors can't track them." Across the fleet, similar chaos erupted. Massive dreadnoughts found their engines mysteriously failing. Cruiser squadrons discovered their weapon systems had been selectively disabled, leaving them floating helplessly while their life support remained untouched. Fighter bays experienced coordinated power failures that trapped entire squadrons inside their launch tubes. The Kithera attacks were perfectly coordinated, hitting multiple targets simultaneously across the entire fleet with timing that required impossible levels of communication and planning. Each strike targeted exactly the right system to disable rather than destroy, leaving Vorthak crews alive but completely helpless. Captain Beth Morgan of the Earth observation vessel Prometheus watched the battle unfold from concealed position behind Philo's largest moon. The stealth ship's advanced sensors recorded every moment of the engagement while remaining invisible to both sides. "Signal Earth Command," she told her communications officer, unable to keep the pride from her voice. "Operation Silent Storm is a complete success. The Kithra have exceeded all expectations. The bridge crew watch in amazement as a mighty Vorthak fleet, which had terrorized the galaxy for generations, found itself systematically dismantled by opponents they couldn't see, track, or understand. Traditional military doctrine had no answer for enemies who could strike anywhere while remaining completely undetectable. Within 6 hours, Admiral Cragmore found himself commanding a fleet of floating scrap metal. 48 warships hung powerless in space, their crews trapped inside vessels that had become elaborate prisons. The Kithra had achieved something no military force in galactic history had accomplished: the complete neutralization of an enemy fleet without a single confirmed kill. As emergency beacons began transmitting distress calls across Vorthak space, the remnants of the once mighty fleet prepared for the humiliating retreat that would change galactic politics forever. The species everyone had dismissed as worthless had just demonstrated a new form of warfare that made traditional military power obsolete. The galaxy was about to learn that there were fates worse than death in battle, and the Silent Storm had mastered them all. The Galactic Confederation emergency session erupted into absolute chaos as holographic reports flooded the massive crystal chamber. Emergency broadcasts from across the galaxy painted an impossible picture. Kithra forces were not just defending their remaining worlds, but launching coordinated strikes deep into Vorthak territory with unprecedented success. Chairman Vorex's massive reptilian form towered over the assembly, his yellow eyes wide with disbelief as tactical displays showed Vorthak's strongholds falling one after another. The fortress world of Grimhold, which had withstood siege for 3 centuries, had surrendered after Kithra infiltrators disabled its planetary defense grid in under 2 hours. The industrial complex at Vortak Prime lay in ruins, its weapons factory systematically dismantled by invisible forces that left the civilian population completely unharmed. "This is impossible," Vorex shouted, his voice echoing through the chamber as delegates from hundreds of species watched in stunned silence. "The Kithra are pacifist weaklings. They clean our stations and tend our gardens. They don't even have a military." Ambassador Lisa Grant stood calmly on the human platform, her diplomatic composure intact despite the pandemonium around her. The other species had spent decades dismissing Earth's representatives as primitive newcomers, but now their attention focused on her with desperate intensity. "We're pacifist weaklings," she corrected with quiet authority. "Now they're the most effective military force in this sector of the galaxy. While you were writing them off as servants, we were helping them discover what they really were." The Bruthan delegation erupted in furious protest, their red-scale forms bristling with weapons they couldn't use against an enemy they couldn't find. General Thokgor, who had mocked the Kithra just months earlier, now faced reports of his own border fortresses falling to attacks that defied every military doctrine his species understood. "Lies!" he roared, spittle flying from his fanged maw. "No force can defeat Vorthak battle fleets without massive casualties. Show us the Kithra losses." Lisa Grant smiled coldly. "There are no Kithra losses to report, General. That's rather the point." General Mike Carter's holographic image materialized in the center of the chamber, his calm presence a stark contrast to the chaos surrounding him. The aging human officer had spent his career studying alien military capabilities, and now he stood before the galaxy's most powerful leaders as the architect of their worst nightmare. "Earth is proud to stand beside our Kithra allies," Mike announced, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "We saw their potential when others saw only weakness. We offered them partnership when others offered only contempt." The tactical displays shifted to show real-time footage from the front lines. Vorthak dreadnoughts floated powerless in space while Kithra technical teams swarmed over their hulls like metallic insects, stripping away weapons and critical systems with surgical precision. Entire invasion fleets had been reduced to floating scrap, without a single confirmed enemy fatality. Kira Nell's image appeared beside Mike Carter's, her pale blue form now clad in the ceremonial armor of the newly formed Kithra Star Guard. The frightened refugee who had once begged for protection was gone, replaced by Supreme Commander Kiranel, leader of a military force that had rewritten the rules of galactic warfare. "Honored delegates," she addressed the assembly that had once dismissed her people with such casual cruelty. "You taught us that strength comes only through violence and domination. You were wrong. True strength comes in many forms, and we thank her for helping us find ours." Behind her, Holographic displays showed Kithra strike teams moving through captured Vorthak installations like ghosts, their biometallic armor shifting colors to match their surroundings perfectly. They disabled defense systems, captured strategic intelligence, and vanished before enemy reinforcements could respond. Traditional military thinking had no counter for opponents who could be anywhere while being nowhere. The weeks that followed transformed galactic politics entirely. Representatives from dozens of lesser species began making quiet approaches to Earth's embassy stations. The diminutive Zelani, who had served as translators and clerks for millennia, requested private meetings with human military advisors. The aquatic Threnody, dismissed as primitive because they lived underwater, sent secret delegations seeking partnership agreements. Each species carried the same desperate hope. If humans had transformed the pathetic Kithra into galactic superpowers, what might they do for others who had been written off as worthless? The Vorthek Empire, facing military disasters on every front, officially sued for peace within a month. Their surrendered documents, transmitted across every major communication network in the galaxy, acknowledged Kithra's sovereignty over all disputed territories and paid massive reparations for colonial destruction. The Confederation Council, forced to confront a new reality, formally recognized the Kithra Star Guard as a major military power. Species that had enslaved Kithra workers for centuries now found themselves negotiating as equals with beings they had once considered beneath notice. On Lunar Base, General Mike Carter stood in the observation deck watching joint training exercises between human special forces and Kithra strike teams. The two species moved through complex simulations with perfect coordination, their different strengths combining into something greater than either could achieve alone. Dr. Rachel Morrison joined him in the viewing window, her research notes documenting transformation techniques that would revolutionize military science throughout the galaxy. "The applications are limitless," she said softly, watching a mixed unit eliminate simulated threats with impossible efficiency. "Every species has unique capabilities they've never explored. We're not just changing military doctrine, we're changing how the galaxy thinks about potential itself." Mike nodded, his weathered face creased with satisfaction. The strong species always assumed they knew what strength meant. Now they're learning there are kinds of power they never imagined. The galaxy was indeed becoming a very different place. The age of might makes right was ending, replaced by something more complex and dangerous, an era where the dismissed and forgotten might prove to be the most formidable forces of all. Asterisk the END asterisk.